All right, let's jump right in. We're about to take a look at something that, let's be honest, can feel a little stiff, a university syllabus. But we're going to deconstruct it and show you what it really is. An incredible map for one of the greatest adventures you could ever take. A journey through the massive, sprawling world of literature.
Right off the bat, let's get one thing totally clear. Forget everything you think a syllabus is. This is not just a checklist of books you have to power through for an exam. No, it's something way more alive than that.
So let's dive in, shall we? I want you to think of this syllabus as our map, a map for a huge expedition that's going to take us across centuries, hop between continents, and explore the deepest, weirdest parts of the human experience, all through the power of words on a page.
Okay, so every expedition has to start somewhere, right? Our starting point is the heartland of the English literary tradition. We're kicking things off with the two foundational forms that literally shape the language we speak: poetry and drama. This is square one on our map.
I mean, just look at this timeline for a second. It shows this incredible, wild transformation. Over 400 years, what poetry is even about shifts dramatically. You go from the kind of intellectual, divine puzzles of the early masters to the super intense, personal emotions of the romantics, and then you land in the fractured, uncertain world of the modernists. It's a crazy ride.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The sheer contrast is amazing. You've got John Milton writing Paradise Lost. I mean, the scale is literally heaven and hell. But then, a little over a century later, you have William Wordsworth with Tinter Abbey, and he's finding that same epic, profound meaning, but in a single personal memory. The universe of poetry was somehow expanding and contracting at the same time.
And then the world starts to change, fast. Here you see poets trying to make sense of it all. Alfred Lord Tennyson's Ulysses is pure Victorian spirit, that drive to strive, to seek, to find. But by the time you get to the 20th century, a poet like W.B. Yeats is writing The Second Coming, and he feels like the whole center is collapsing. It's this powerful argument between certainty and chaos, playing out over generations.
At the same time, the stage was just electric. It kicks off with these huge moral questions, in Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus or Shakespeare's Hamlet. But if you fast forward a few hundred years, the whole purpose of theater changes. It becomes a form of rebellion. From the profound, strange emptiness of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot to the raw, screaming anger in John Osborne's Look Back in Anger.
Now for the next leg of our journey. A new technology emerges in the literary world, and it's a total game changer: the novel. This new form created a whole new way of telling stories, one that could dig into society and the individual mind with a kind of detail that no one had ever seen before.
So, what was the big deal about the novel? Well, think about it like this. Drama is a public thing, right? You watch it in a theater with a crowd. But a novel is a private experience. It's a one-on-one conversation between you and the narrator's voice. It can dive deep inside a character's head and build these huge, sprawling worlds in a way a stage just can't.
And these folks, these are the architects, the ones who built the novel from the ground up. The journey starts with writers like Jane Austen, who, in Pride and Prejudice, basically perfected the novel as a perfect mirror of society. Then it evolves. With Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, the novel becomes more like a lamp, shining a light into the dark corners of our own minds. And finally, you get the modernists like Virginia Woolf, who just smash the mirror altogether and try to write the stream of consciousness itself.
And this whole conversation wasn't just happening in made-up stories. Running right alongside the novels, you had thinkers like J.S. Mill and Bertrand Russell using nonfiction prose to argue about huge ideas like liberty, science, and truth, directly shaping the real world that the novels were trying to capture.
Okay, so, up until now, we've mostly been charting territory in Britain. But now our map is about to explode across the entire globe. The English language, carried around the world by empire and trade, starts to take root in new places. And writers there begin using it to tell their own stories, creating these incredible, vibrant new literary worlds.
First up, America. Writers here were trying to forge a brand new identity. You can feel it in the massive ambition of Herman Melville's Moby Dick and the big, democratic voice of Walt Whitman. But that identity was also being questioned, right? In Arthur Miller's classic critique of the American dream, Death of a Salesman, and in the powerful, deep historical voice of Langston Hughes.
Next up, we journey to the Indian subcontinent, where the English language starts to blend with these ancient, rich traditions.
This incredible fusion creates modern epics like Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, which literally tells the story of a nation through one character. And then you have the intensely personal and political work of Arundhati Roy and The God of Small Things.
And the map just keeps getting bigger. In Nigeria, you have Chinua Achebe's masterpiece, Things Fall Apart, which famously uses English to reclaim African history from colonial stories. Over in the Caribbean, Nobel winner Derek Walcott struggles with his dual heritage. The point is, all over the world, writers like Canada's Margaret Atwood were taking this language and making it completely their own.
But hold on, a map's borders aren't just about geography, are they? They're also about perspective. For centuries, this literary map was drawn almost exclusively by men. A book like Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own wasn't just a book, it was a demand for space on that map. And that act threw the doors wide open for writers like Toni Morrison and Jean Rice to come in and redraw the whole thing, telling the stories that had been pushed to the margins.
So for this final section, we're going to open up our Explorer's Toolkit. We have this vast, amazing map in front of us, but how do we actually read it? What are the tools we need to navigate this world and really understand what's going on beneath the surface?
First up, every explorer needs a compass. For us, that's linguistics. This is literally the science of the language itself. It helps us understand the nuts and bolts, the words, the grammar, the sounds that every single one of these writers used to build their worlds.
Next, in our toolkit, we have a whole set of different lenses. This is literary theory. Think of it like this. A feminist lens helps us reread a book like Jane Eyre and ask totally new questions about who has power and who gets to tell the story. Each lens you use reveals a whole new layer of meaning you might have totally missed before.
And finally, we have our universal translator. That's translation studies. It's the amazing art and science that lets us bridge the gaps between cultures, allowing this whole literary conversation to be truly global. It's how a French writer like Flaubert can end up in conversation with an Indian writer like Manto.
Okay, wow. We have covered so much ground. We've gone from Renaissance poetry to modern novels to literary theory. So after this whole whirlwind expedition, what's the big takeaway? What's the most important landmark on this entire map? Here it is. The most important thing to get is this. Literature isn't a museum full of dusty old books. It's a single, massive, chaotic, living, breathing conversation. John Milton is in conversation with Homer. Jean Rhys is arguing with Charlotte Bronte. Derek Walcott is talking back to the entire English poetic tradition. Every new book is just another voice joining this incredible discussion.
And that, right there, leads us to the final, most exciting part. This map, it's not finished, not even close. New voices are adding new countries, new islands, new territories to it every single day. The expedition never really ends, which leads us with the best question of all. What part of the map will you explore, and what new places will be added to it tomorrow?